Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Paduka Sahasram ki jai, Shri Vedanta Deshika Mahayasha ki jai. So welcome back. I'm so happy that you could join us for our second session of the three for discussion on a very few sample verses of Sri Paduka Sahasram. And even among that sample, we're only limiting ourselves to Ratna Samanya Paddhati, which talks about the jewels that are studded on the Padukas, and that too in a general sort of way. Just to bring us back to where we left off, we're going to visit the two verses from last week. Let sort of them set the mood, and then we'll go further and see how far we get today. And as you hear these verses, I've asked some of the devotees who tolerate me and appreciate what I do, and I know they like to sing verses. So I've asked them, and so you'll hear some of the voices. Of course, this is not the complete list of people who I know. This is just the initial, but they've been very kind to do this upon my request. There it is. Oops. All right, so these are the 1008 verses that Sri Vedanta Desika composed. We looked at this. We know when the Padukas are being referred to, they're obviously being referred to the Padukas as they were a Devi, or the energy or the consort of the Lord, a very trusted servant of the Lord. It also refers to Nammalvar, which then means to refer to a guru. So each of these verses has the direct meaning, that is the glorification of Paduka Devi, and the hidden meaning of glorification of the spiritual master. So we discussed this verse.
Abhishechayatu saramapadena va sprishatu paduke bhavatim avisheshita mahimatvam kvava avishesha kshama sametanam.
We particularly appreciated the quality of the Paduka and the quality of the Guru to be Kshama Sametanam. Kshama means tolerant. Directly it means the earth, but it also means tolerant. Since we are directly glorifying the spiritual master, Kshama Sameta means that the spiritual master is always in all conditions, ever tolerant and merciful or forgiving. Because one who is tolerant is forgiving, one who is intolerant is not forgiving. And this idea of Kshama Sameta is the hope for, or the rope by which an aspiring spiritualist and aspiring devotee holds on to, because given the disqualification of all sorts of natures, the only hope that the disciple has is that the guru is very tolerant and forgiving, and that gives the room for the disciple to develop, nurture oneself, and in turn treat others with the same tolerance and forgiveness that has been bestowed and they have been tolerated by. That is the principle of disciplic succession, and it is a striking characteristic of such devotees. I thank Mukunda for singing this. The next one, we went through quite in detail of this verse. This Jyotirmaya sang on my request.
दिदृक्षमाणस्य परं निधानं स्नेहान्विते योगदशाविशेषे संवित्प्रदीपं मणिपादरक्षे सन्दुक्षयन्तीव मरीचयस्ते.
We went through this verse and we said there are three words that we hold on to, and if we remember those three words, this entire verse's implication, meaning, and empowerment will be bestowed upon us, which is didrikshamanasya. That means from the side of the aspirant, from the devotee, there is this progressive desire to want to see the Lord in the heart. And for that, the devotee is willing to try anything and everything to remove the unwanted ones. Not that the devotee can, but at least work towards. We call it anukulyena, Krishna anushelanam. And then from the side of the Padukas, or the side of the Guru, they have a lot of love and compassion for the devotees. And so they are sneha anvite. And with that sneha anvite, they inspire and they urge and stoke the fire of bhakti in our heart. And that was the word sandhukshayanti. Sandhukshayanti means to stoke and to inspire and to further encourage us. So thank you, Jyotirmaya. So today we're going to look at a different verse. This verse is, again, because it is Ratna Samanya, it is all in the spirit of the effulgence, the brightness, the light, the glow of the gems of the Paduka. This is also a beautiful verse, and our little Madhav Priya has sung this one. Lovely, lovely verse. Let's go along and see what we hear from Vedanta Deshika on this.
देवस्य रङ्गवसते पुरतः प्रवृत्तै उद्धूतविश्वतिमिरा मणिरश्मिजालै मन्ये मदीयहृदया आयतना प्रवेश माङ्गल्यदीपकणिकाम् मणिपादुके त्वाम्.
I really wish and pray that you continue to sing, and you really have a wonderful voice and devotion in your heart. So thank you, Madhava Priya. The meaning for this verse is, O Manipaduke, or the Paduka studded with gems, I consider you as the small auspicious lamp entering the altar of my heart ahead of the entry of the Lord, who now resides in Sri Rangam, increasingly dispelling the varieties of darknesses by the mesh of rays from your gems. Sri Vedanta Deshika expresses in this shloka that the Lord is now arriving into his heart. So he is completely enthralled and jubilant that the Lord is about to enter. And how does he know that? He knows that because the Paduka Devi, is heralding the entry of the Lord or the arrival into the heart of Vedanta Deshika in advance. And therefore he says, Purataha Pravesha. You enter my heart first, and by that you tell me that the Lord is arriving. Now, when a person, we're going to look at the word Purataha for now. Suppose you're carrying a lamp and you're walking with it, and you're trying to go towards a dark room. Before you enter the room, the effulgence of the light enters the dark space first. And anyone who's in the dark room knows that somebody is about to enter just by the progressive increase of light into the room. Similarly, when the Supreme Lord is walking, in this case, he's referring to Lord Ranganath. When Lord Ranganath is walking towards his heart to manifest himself, Padukas, the rays from the jewels of the Padukas appear first. And that's how he says, you are very, very kind that you are telling me that the Lord is about to enter my heart. And so the phrases that he uses, Mani Rashmi Jalaihi. Jala means a mesh or a net. Rashmi is the rays of light, and Mani are all the jewels. So Mani Rashmi Jale is the sheet or the net or the mesh of effulgent rays from the gems on Paduka. So this lamp, that the Paduka is being compared to a lamp. And what kind of lamp? Mangalya Deepa Kanikam. Kanika means a small lamp. And Mangalya means connected with auspiciousness or of bringing auspiciousness. So this lamp has two purposes. One, Uddhuta Vishwa Timira. Not just Timira, but Timiram, all the darknesses that encompass the universe. So Uddhuta Vishwa Timiram. So removal of darkness and something else as well. Mangalyam. That after the darkness is removed, the lamp or the Padukas bestow all auspiciousness on the devotee. So Uddhuta particularly is Uddhuta, that which removes in such a way that it elevates. Now Vishwa Timiram, the darknesses that envelop the universe, or what we say, the darkness that covers spiritual reality from us. And this has many, many layers. So the primary layer that we say is avidya or ignorance that covers all realities, even in this world. When we look at material science, the laws of physics, chemistry, biology, engineering, mechanics, or whatever, electricity, because we may not be familiar with the subject matter, that ignorance covers the reality or the rules or the principles by which these things work in the universe. Even if one learns this knowledge, yet that avidya, that I am actually a part and parcel and servant of the Supreme Lord, is not there, and that knowledge is not there. So the ignorance covers us from our actual reality, that we are meant to find our place at the lotus feet of the Lord and live a spiritual life, a spiritual existence, our actual real identity and existence. and that we don't belong to this world. The reason the conditioned soul has attachment and affinity to this world is because this is the only world one is familiar with. And so one thinks that this is my actual home, when there is the actual home, which is the spiritual world that is always effulgent. Natad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, that world is where one needs to get to. And that world is Natad bhasayate surya. There is no need for a sun, because in this world, we need the sun to give us light. We need the sun to nourish us. Natad bhasayate surya na shashankaha, nor the moon. There is no need for a moon. Na pavakaha, there is no need for fire, because that place is self-effulgent. Everybody living there is self-effulgent. Yadgatva na nivartante tat dhama paramam mama. One who goes there will never come back, because that is my real, actual place. Tat dhama. In the spiritual sky, we discussed that there is no need for all of this, because a person is already self-luminous and completely nourished in that existence. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a similar reference. Canto 2, chapter 2, verse 15. And Katha Upanishad is one of the Upanishads that I got my name before initiation from. The main person in that Upanishad is this young boy called Nachiketa, who's being instructed by Yamaraj. So my father was very inspired by that name, and that's how I got that name. So in that, Yamaraj is instructing Nachiketa that there is this spiritual world, and it's called, the way he describes is natatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kuto yamagnihi tameva bhanti anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvam vibhati. Na tatra suryo bhati, there is, the sun doesn't shine there. Na chandra na tarakam, nor the moon nor the stars. Na ima vidyuto bhati kuto yamagnihi. So if you don't need any of these luminaries, then what to speak of fire? Kutoyam agnihi. Then why do you need fire at all? And tameva bhati anubhati sarvam. Because that place is constantly effulgent, every being, everything else is also effulgent because of it. It is the Lord's effulgence that makes everything, everyone fully effulgent. Tasya bhasa, because that person is effulgent, sarvam vibhati. Everything else is. So this lamp, the Padukas are telling us that spiritual existence is our real existence. This darkness is not a place of our existence. Another meaning is, and Mangalya, that's the other meaning, that before we begin any auspicious activity, before we begin any activity, it is said that one needs to light a lamp as part of heralding auspiciousness. Even in deity worship, before one begins anything, generally it is meant that one lights a lamp, and from that lamp everything else is lit. There is some lamp or fire in the kitchen from which all other fires are lit for the day-to-day activities. So this Deepa is called Mangalya Deepa. And it doesn't need to be a big one, small one. That is all that is necessary to start and kindle all other fires that a grahastha or a pujari needs to do as part of his or her worship every day. Now, the glow of the jewels entering the room or entering the heart of Vedanta Desika or any devotee first means that the Padukas arrive before the Lord. Therefore, he says, Purataha Pravesha. Because the Padukas represent the spiritual master, we are very familiar with the phrase, Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasadaha, Yasya Aprasadat Nagati Kutopihi. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And if the spiritual master's mercy is not there, then there is no hope for the living entity of any kind of auspiciousness or for any kind of mercy. Prasada is mercy. So a question is, if you consider the Padukas for a moment as inanimate objects, we say shoes, then which of the statements is true? Does the shoe enter the room on its own, or because the person who's wearing the shoes is entering the room? The answer is yeah. Inanimate object is the person who's walking that brings the shoe into the room. So the shoe doesn't have its own volition. However, since shoes are referred to as Paduka Devi, she has the volition, and contra to one's intuitive nature, it's the shoe that brings the foot of Ranganath into one's heart. And as the foot enters, then the entire personality of Ranganath is also there. So it is the shoe that brings Ranganath. It is the spiritual master that invites the Supreme Lord to reside in the deity. It is the Supreme Lord who petitions on our behalf to come and reside and manifest his presence in our heart. Paramatma is already there. It's just that we are not aware. The same Katha Upanishad talks of the two birds. One is busy eating the fruits, the other is just observing. And at some point, this other bird who's been eating all sorts of fruits or enjoying the material senses has to turn towards the other bird. So it is the Padukas, it is the spiritual master who brings the Supreme Lord and manifests within one's heart. When I'm saying bring, one may say he's already there. He reveals the Lord in one's heart. In the previous chapter, previous verse, we read about Sandhukshayanti, that the Padukas inspire the devotee to enhance the desire, the burning desire to see the Lord. In this verse, the Padukas inspire the Lord to move. So on that verse, the Padukas inspire the devotee. In this verse, the Padukas inspire the Supreme Lord. And this is called via medium, that the Padukas don't gain anything. The spiritual master doesn't gain anything. He petitions and brings the Lord to us, and he inspires us to have that desire to see the Supreme Lord. And the Guru is the link that brings the conditioned living being in contact with the Supreme Lord. So this is the function of the spiritual master. So always the Guru's grace first and then the Lord's. Now, when one has the grace of the spiritual master in one's life, and how does that grace appear? By the Guru's presence, by the Guru's instructions, and by the Guru's empowerment for the conditioned being to develop the service attitude and actually express that service attitude to whatever degree it has been developed. So by engaging us in bhakti, this auspiciousness, mangalya, is completely pervading our lives. But how does our heart get prepared? It is said that the spiritual master first enters one's heart. One may not have realization of the presence of the Lord in the heart, but one definitely has the realization of the presence of the Guru in one's heart. And everything is done for the pleasure of the Guru. Not with the idea that the Lord doesn't exist, but we don't know. We can't tangibly experience the presence of the Lord, but we take the spiritual master's pleasure or displeasure as the expression of the Supreme Lord's pleasure or displeasure. We take the empowerment given by the Guru as it is the empowerment given by the Lord. We take the instructions of the Guru as these are instructions of Krishna for me, of Sri Ramachandra, or Lord Narayana, or God Nitai. These are their instruction to me. So in that sense, the Guru prepares the heart of the disciple before the Supreme Lord manifests. Very similar to how Lord Balaram appeared in the womb of Devaki. After 6 pregnancies were not successful, Lord Balaram entered Devaki's womb, stayed for a while, and they say that he purified that womb because the 6 previous children represent the 6, we call it in Sanskrit, it's called Shad Varga, Shad Aris, the 6 enemies: lust, greed, envy, pride, madness, illusion. Once they are removed, then the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Servitor Lord Balaram appears to prepare the womb for the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna to appear. So he comes first. Another is when Ramachandra, Sita Devi, and Lakshmana are walking in the forest in Dandakaranya. Every time they have to meet with the demons. Actually, whenever they have to meet with the saintly persons, the order in which they walk is Lakshmana first, Sita Devi in middle, and Ramachandra behind. But whenever they have to meet a demon, the order changes. It's Ramachandra first, Sita Devi in middle, Lakshmana in the back. So as far as when saintly persons are meeting the Supreme Lord, one first meets Lakshmana, or in this case, as we say, the representative of the Lord, that is the spiritual master. We know that Sugriva made friendship with Sri Ramachandra. And I'm completely abridging this pastime just to give us the spirit of the verse. This pastime itself will take an hour to 2 hours to explain. But Sugriva made friendship with Sri Ramachandra, but somehow did not honor Lakshmana when they first met, and not just once, but twice. When they met, Sugriva broke the branch, a very nice, lush branch of a sala tree, offered to Ramachandra to sit, plucked another branch, and made a seat for himself, and kept Lakshmana standing. Hanumanji had to break a branch and offer it to Lakshmana. And we have heard from Sri Rompad Maharaj that part of it is Dvivida spoke into Sugriva's ears that no need to focus on Lakshmana so much. The main person is Ramachandra. You make friendship with him. He is your equal. So for this offense, for not honoring Lakshmana, the first time when Sugriva went to meet Vali, he was so badly beaten that Vali left Sugriva's life hanging by a very thin thread. Only after Sugriva got this garland of Gajapushpa, this big massive flower garland from Lakshmana, then only did Sri Ramachandra shoot Vali. So how critical it is to recognize and honor the auspicious presence of the spiritual master first in one's life, before even considering the presence of the Lord. So that's this verse, very beautiful verse. We'll hear it one more time. Sorry, how did I come here? Okay.
देवस्य रङ्गवसते पुरतः प्रवृत्तै उद्धूतविश्वतिमिरा मणिरश्मिजालै मन्ये मदीयहृदया आयतना प्रवेश माङ्गल्यदीपकणिकां मणिपादुके त्वाम्.
And like I did last week, I will on our WhatsApp group send you the verse, the translation, and the audio, so you can keep it as a meditation if you like. So we'll go to the next verse. Another lovely, lovely verse sung by Rati Prabhu for us. This verse also talks about the grace of the Padukas and what it does to the life of a devotee who gets that grace.
यामैव रत्नकिरणैर्मणिपादरक्षे चूडापदे तनुभृतां भवती विधत्ते चक्रादिदैवतशिखा मणिराज्यमाने तामेव ते प्रकटयन्ति पदैरभिख्याम् यामेव रत्नकिरणैर्मणिपादरक्षे.
Wow, what a lovely verse. O Manipaduke, Manipadarakshe, whichever mortal being's heads you grace by the rays of your gems, those same persons reflect at their feet great splendor from the jewels on the crowns of Indra and other demigods. So let's get a visual of what this verse is like. So if it helps, close your eyes and imagine as I describe it. Any ordinary mortal being, tanubhratam, which means one who's carrying a body. Such a person, when they bow down to the Padukas, and the rays of the Padukas, Ratna Kiranair, they make the head of such a devotee glow. Chuda Pader. Or when a devotee carries the Padukas on their head, means they render service to Paduka. They become the servant of the Padukas. Their head is glowing by the effulgence of the jewels. And that similar effulgence now starts to appear at the feet of such a devotee. In fact, such a person. And their feet are effulgent because by the simple activity of carrying the Padukas on their head, Indra and other demigods run and come and offer their obeisances to such a person. So the jewels on the heads of the demigods now make the feet of such a person effulgent. So the head and feet are both glowing, and are both glowing because of the jewels. But in one case, it's the jewels from the shoes or from Padukas, and at the feet, it's the jewels from the crowns of Indra and other demigods. What a lovely, lovely visual. So this spirit of Padasevanam literally, of course, is worshipping the feet of the Lord, no doubt. But Padasevanam means becoming a servant, The word used in Sanskrit is bhrita, bhritya. Bhritya is the servant, or we say kinkara. Kimkara, what can I do for you? Such a personality gets that kind of opulence that the demigods don't have. And the demigods make appeal at the feet of such a person. Usually in this world, human beings always feel that whatever they need has to come from the grace of the demigods. Because in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, Krishna describes, I've made an arrangement that all living beings, especially human beings on this earthly realm, get all their needs fulfilled by appeasing the demigods by the process of yajna. And that is a healthy arrangement I have created. And people worship varieties of demigods for fulfilling varieties of desires, whether it's money, education, happiness, health, prosperity, whatever. But the greatest of the wealths that one can ever get is the grace of the Padukas. One who gets that, instead of running after the demigods, the grace of the Padukas, the wealth of carrying the Padukas, the wealth of holding the Padukas, the wealth of becoming attached to the Padukas is so intense and so great that the demigods now run after such a devotee and want to take the dust from the feet of such a devotee. This is what because the Padukas give the feet of the Lord. And those feet are not easily available. Although in one sense, they're very easily available. In another sense, they're not easily available. So in this spirit, one who has a guru in one's life actually becomes worshipable by the demigods. This is the hidden meaning or the other meaning. Whatever one needs in one's life, by having the presence of a spiritual master in one's life, it is said that all of one's needs are fulfilled. It's just a matter of time on how things manifest, but it is already there, it is already determined, because the spiritual master gives the greatest wealth, and that is the feet of the Supreme Lord. Because when we get the feet, no other wealth can match that possession. So a devotee is considered very intelligent. The intelligence is there indicated by the word chuda pade. That by the greatest intelligence is I've put my head I've put padukas on my head. Because otherwise, other intelligence will say that I will put my head at the feet of other demigods or other human beings or so-called persons that I want to flatter and get something in this world. But the real intelligence is to carry or to bow one's head at the shoes of the Lord. Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. That bija, because we carry other bijas, the bijas of bad samskaras, the bijas of aparad, the bijas of papa, sins, that all those seeds are fructifying. But there is one seed that nullifies all other seeds, and that's the Bhakti Lata Bija. The demigods facilitate one's punya, and they determine what happens with all the papa. Therefore, one gets elevated within the universe or gets demoted to lower life forms or lower rungs in the universe. And so their fate is determined by the demigods, an ordinary person. But when even an ordinary person carries the padukas on their heads, carries the instructions of the guru on one's head, makes one's guru worshipable for oneself. The guru is already worshipable, but the devotee has to make one. Then the fate is not written by the demigods anymore. The fate is written. Actually, there is no fate. It only tells that the person belongs back in the spiritual world. That's that beautiful, beautiful verse. So we'll hear it one more time.
श्यामैव रत्नकिरणैर्मणिपादरक्षे चूडापदे तनुभृतां भवती विधत्ते चक्रादिदैवतशिखा मणिराज्यमाने तामेव ते प्रकटयन्ति पदैरभिख्याम् यामेव रत्नकिरणैर्मणिपादरक्षे.
So let's see, are there any comments, reflections, questions, or anything you want to share from these two verses? You like the verses?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my
Mataji.
humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much. I have two questions, I think. So it is all exposition that you have discussed today is all about the position of spiritual master and a disciple's attitude towards the spiritual master, or the degree to which one is submissive to the guru. Then that's where all this ignorance is removed, to the degree to which one is submitting oneself. So the greatest intelligence is how one considers one's guru. It is not just because one has a guru, everything manifests. It is the heart of the disciple which makes that happen, that reciprocation, as well as removal of these layers of covering, whether it is internal covering as well as the external coverings. That's what the point with regard to everything relating to guru, correct?
Yeah. Just by the fact of having a guru also, the person has access to the greatest of wealth. They just may not be aware of the extent of what that wealth is, or that they even have that wealth. But everyone has. It's a matter of, from the previous verse, didrikshamana, the desire to want to, I guess, see the Lord in one's heart.
Yeah. So then one other thing, I don't know, that came to my mind was these padukas are also representing the consort of the Lord, correct? So are there other expositions in these verses where similar explanations are given with regard to how that works? Because this is all the mercy of Guru.
Yeah, but the consort, in the sense, the Guru represents the Hladini potency by which, or the energy that attracts one to the Supreme Lord. So in that sense, whether we speak about the guru or the consort of the Lord, it's not that different per se in principle. And there are other verses, because he's calling her Paduka Devi, there are verses that refer to the amorous activities and the pastimes with the Lord, depending on which paddhati we're going into. Yeah, there are wonderful verses of that as well.
Thank you
What-
so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Anyone else? Something you liked, something inspired you?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. It's really a mercy and that you are pouring on us. Still, I am like every day I am hearing your the last week's lecture for the last 1 week. That Kshama Sametanam. I am really that hearing that examples and that word Kshama Sametanam. I'm myself. I'm repeating myself that how much effort and how much mercy I need to get into that quality to develop that quality. Really, it's a wonderful verses, Prabhu, that you are giving us and pouring that mercy. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
You know, in India, people have parrots or parakeets at home, and those parakeets say cute things, but they have no realization of it. So when it comes to Paduka Sahasram, yes, it's very inspiring. I've been studying them, but I'm like that parrot who's repeating it. Just being an instrument here, as far as realization, that's far away, but at least there is inspiration. And in fact, I'm inspired by your enthusiasm that you've been hearing it for the whole week. That's amazing. Thank you. I feel so much more energized by such expression of yours. Thank you.
Hari Bol, Prabhu.
Go ahead, Hemangi, you want to say something?
I heard somebody say Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Okay.
I'll let them speak first.
Go ahead.
Oh. As you were speaking, it's a simple thing, a very fundamental understanding that what is most important is for a sadhaka is cultivating the right desire. Seems like the Paduka, who's ever eager to take the Lord wherever he wants to go, or to go first before the Lord's mercy arrives. The spiritual master's mood is also like that, especially the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is always emphasized, giving that mercy and the costless mercy. So I was thinking, as sadhakas, from our side, what is most attractive to the spiritual master and to the Lord is cultivating the right desire. And the desire is, when will that mercy come? Or when the mercy, not when, because the mercy is always there. When will my, stone-like heart be open to receive that mercy? Like cultivating that kind of a desire, seems like for me, that is the most difficult thing, because once I cultivate the desire, everything is quite automatic, because the Lord and the Lord's devotees are so merciful. Like they do the magic, they do everything. And, whatever that blocks us, the Lord, seeing our attempts or desiring, takes away that. So I was appreciating from today's class that, like last week I was saying, Om Agyana Timirandasya, the Shalakaya, the instrument is actually that removes the cataract. That's what Prabhupada or Narottam Das Thakur says, the instrument that removes the darkness is actually the instruction of the spiritual master. So having that, cultivating the desire,
In the thank you, Hemangi. The definition of bhakti given by Rupa Goswami actually has a pure devotional service, we say, as Prabhupada gave us, has less to do with activity and more to do with disposition. He says Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Krishna Anushilanam is the internal disposition, and that is also combined with karma jnana shunya abhilashita. So it's more of the condition of the heart first that gives life to the rest of the activities. But generally, people have, I mean, all of us, activities first, and then the disposition slowly changes or molds to a little bit more aligning with the purer aspect of Anukulyena Krishna Anushilan.
And I was also appreciating, having verses like this in the beginning. One may not have, like, how these are the kind of questions Maharaj always gets it when he does, Festival of Holy Names. Yeah, especially the holy name classes, how to. And I know that in the beginning, it's quite dry because we have so much associated with the material energy, But I think sometimes, having these verses and just, the verses have the potency because they're deep realization of very advanced devotees. So in my own life, I'm seeing more and more, because I was not a verse person. For me, it was always about essences, understanding the essences. But now that I have some time to actually contemplate on verses, because that was not my strength, and I said, okay, but I see Maharaj, yourself, and some of my very good friends, they are constantly absorbed in verses and meditating on them. I was inspired by that, and I see a small change in my own heart. Like, it's not a mechanical way of learning verses, but it's actually a deep meditation. And slowly, the heart kind of starts transforming, or, softens more than like transformation. I've not seen much in my heart, but I do see there is slight softening of the heart, just by the words of the verses being so potent, So thank you, for all the devotees who have sung so beautifully, devotionally. It helps for people like me who are not naturally inclined to verses, to meditate on these verses.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Shamakut, go ahead.
The last verse that you said struck a chord with me, that like Srila Prabhupada, the Padukas represent the spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada kept his spiritual master's instruction on his head. And as a result, his feet was decorated with these Devata-like or beyond Devata-like disciples who took his mission forward.
Wow.
And we are here. We have the great fortune of being at that point in time where the jewels at Srila Prabhupada's feet themselves have become the Paduka whom we can carry on our head. And about 8 years ago, in the South India Yatra, Maharaj, first the second South India, 10 years ago, I think, so more than that, first South India Yatra, Maharaj had said that at Sri Rangam, at Rangavasate, at that very same place in the house of Murli Bhatta or Venkata Bhatta's house, he had said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give this love of Godhead. We who are the disciples of Prabhupada have tried our best. Now it's up to you to take it forward. And he said, as soon as he said that, he said, don't turn left, don't turn right. This message is for you, for each and every one of you. So the gem which our spiritual master and all the disciples of Prabhupada have become in serving him, it's actually a big responsibility in one sense, that we have to continue this shining light, helping others to enter into their heart and help them come closer to Krishna, which means it's much more bigger thing for us also. That's just a thought.
Wow, thank you. Very poetic and sweet way of seeing and expressing it, Shamakun Prabhu. Anyone else? We have a couple of minutes, otherwise we'll end early.
Just in addition, like, as Shamkund was, thank you so much, Shamkund Prabhu, for sharing that. Actually, it's quite profound. As you were saying, I was thinking, as Kali Yuga is progressing, things are deteriorating even like, worse and worse. We can see that, like, just in past 10 years, I can see so much of degradation, and which means that we have to get our act together, even more stronger and faster, in the sense that it's not, again, it's the attitude, like you were saying, the internal disposition, like, so thank you. It's kind of a reminder for myself. Thank you for sharing that.
All right, seems like no one else.
No, there is a chat in the chat box.
He is appreciating Shamkund on the chat box. I don't think there's anything else.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, this is Jaydev Das. Am I audible?
Yes, you're more than audible.
Please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and so elevating to be part of your classes. Thank you so much for taking these classes. I did heard your Vyas Puja offering, probably of the last year, right, wherein you glorified Guru Maharaj's Padukas. Yeah, very unique. And even I remember how Guru Maharaj acknowledged that and appreciated it. I guess when I heard your first class, felt that because of your absorption in these verses, that offering poured out from your heart.
Yeah, that's a sparrow wanting
Thank
to
you
be
for giving that.
That's like a sparrow wanting to be Garuda. Good imitation. Yeah.
No. And Prabhu, my so um, if I'm not wrong, in the Yatra, Guru Maharaj spoke about Vedanta Deshika. So he did, this explained the first part of his life, and then the important messages that he was giving. In that message, if I'm not wrong, probably he explained that at one point of time how some of the devotees physically had beaten Vedanta Deshika. Was that right?
Our Ramachandra to the rescue
Yes,
here.
yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I think it was the thing between the Vadagalai Brahmins and Tengalai Brahmins. Maharaj was explaining that. And during that, I think the Tengalai people will beat up, Vedanta Deshika. That was an incident that was told by Maharaj. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So, for me, it's beyond imagination. For me, it's very hard to understand how come such a, the bell incarnation of the Lord had to undergo, that particular, getting beaten from in this material world. It's so. Could you please help me how I can process it?
I mean, if you can't imagine that, is it easier to imagine that Haridas Thakur got whipped in 22 marketplaces? Or that Prahlad Maharaj got, so many times attempted to be murdered by his own father? Or the Supreme Lord Sri Ramachandra banished from the kingdom for 14 years? I mean, the idea that in the material world, it's not free of difficulty, it is not free of challenges, and it's not free of distress. It's not. What one has is the becoming of immune to it, or holding on to something else that doesn't make the current circumstances really one's absorption. Partly This is addressed in Bhagavad Gita chapter 6. If you see that set of verses, Prabhupada's combined them all together. Verses, I think 6:20 to 23. And in that, there is the phrase that one who has this realization of their relationship with the Lord, for them, there is nothing else that actually can move their consciousness from it. I've come to that place in life where I'm forgetting the first two words of the verse. It's there, it's right here, but I'm not able to say it. It's something like yam labdhva chaparam labham na manyate adhikam tataha. Once you achieved it, there is nothing greater that one wants to achieve, that one can achieve. And he says, tato gurunapi mana na vichalyate, that even in the greatest of difficulties, their mind doesn't move even a little bit. It's for that, is what everyone. It's not that the difficulties in life will go. There's no promise. The Pandavas, the greatest devotees, there was no promise that life will be a joyride. For Prahlad Maharaj, no joyride. For Ambarish Maharaj, not a joyride. Including Sri Ramachandra, who appeared as a human being, no joyride.
Yeah, Prabhu.
But why two devotees fight?
Correct. No, that's not my question. My question is especially with relation to my own self, wherein as a conditioned soul, when we start Krishna consciousness, we are assured that God's protection is there with us. And then when we preach the same message that whenever you are in difficulty, God is going to protect you. Of course, we understand that Lord's protection is according to His terms, not as per our terms. But honestly, like, the statement that comes in the heart is that when such elevated devotees or pure devotees can be physically be beaten, what is okay? If I don't care about my protection, but then what about the protection of my children or devotee children? So that's something which sort of goes very alarming in my brain, which I cannot figure out.
Yeah, how can one figure out bhakti and the Lord by one's brain? Can't. The Lord resides right outside the border of our intelligence. Right outside. Because that kind of disposition, that protection means like this, shelter means like that, that needs to be reoriented and adjusted. The same Parikshit Maharaj who was protected in the womb, the Lord, I guess, sanctioned the curse of a young Brahmin boy. But in both cases, Parikshit Maharaj was protected because what he got was Shukadev Goswami's association. What in this case, Vedanta Deshika or whoever got is the association of the Padukas, the great Acharya. All of that is part of the protection. That one transcends the difficulty doesn't mean that one has no difficulty. It means one transcends the difficulty. The idea of difficult or a challenge, philosophically speaking, I don't have the realization of it. Philosophically speaking, is matra sparashastu. One who can transcend that, Krishna says, is eligible for liberation. So the whole idea of associating with devotees, great persons, scripture, is to help us transcend, to change the vantage from which we look at things. Up until that time, this is how it will look. When I look at a building standing at the ground floor, it's a 20-story building, the building looks very big. When I look at the same building from 40 feet above, it looks big but smaller than what it looked when I was on the ground. And when I look at the same building from an aeroplane, it looks like tiny. So it's the vantage from where things are looked at is important.
Okay, Prabhu.
Until
Thank
that
you
time,
so much.
yeah, up until that time, it won't be any different. It is changing the drishti, not the srishti. Srishti will be just the way it is. It is the drishti that needs to be changed. Wow, everyone has bald head. Woo. All right. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. We pray that the shining rays from the jewels on Paduka grace our heads, much as much the shining rays of instructions from the jewel-like instructions of our spiritual master also grace our head and being, such that our life becomes effulgent, glowing, beautiful, happy, joyful, and compassionate towards others as well. Up until that time, we hold the Padukas as our greatest inspiration, and we let them enter our heart as the auspicious lamp enters, so we may actually be able to see the presence of spiritual master and the Supreme Lord and all of his associates fully manifest in that little core of our heart. He calls it the altar of the heart, Hridaya Ayatana Pravesha. And we seek the grace of all the wonderful, wonderful devotees, the acharyas, who have poured their heart out for us. It's only remaining or waiting for us to find this treasure and make good use of it for ourselves and for others. Thank you. Shri Paduka Sahasram ki jai. Shri Vedanta Desika ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. God Premanande.